3 days ago, the entire world buried me alive in their minds. At least, that's what the obituary said. But I crawled back from something that should have been my grave. And when I finally reached my front door, I saw my husband sitting on the curb with our little girl, suitcases zipped at their feet. Then he spoke 8 words that shattered every truth I ever believed about my bloodline. Before we walk into that moment together, hit like and subscribe to Winds of Thought. And drop your country in the comments so I know where this story is reaching today. Now let me take you back to the beginning of the end. The morning everything went wrong started so peacefully it almost feels like a lie now. I'd been promising an old friend a visit for months. She had moved far out, past the last gas station, where the hills just roll on forever. Life had been a tornado, work, bills, arguments over nothing, and I kept pushing her off. But that Tuesday I woke up and said no more delays. I packed a small bag, kissed my daughter's forehead while she was still asleep, and told my husband I'd be back by dinner. He smiled and waved from the doorway. I still see that wave. The highway was a ghost road. No trucks, no tailgaters. Just me, the hum of the tires and the wind keying with the window gap. I remember thinking, this is exactly what I needed. A deep breath before the next storm. Calm is always the layer before the fall. Then I touched the brake pedal to slow for a sharp turn ahead, and nothing happened. I pressed harder. Still nothing. A cold spike shot from my stomach up to my throat. The car started feeding on the downhill slope, eating speed like it was hungry for the edge. My hands locked onto the steering wheel, white knuckles, dry mouth. The turn was coming fast, and beyond that bend, 100-foot drop into a ravine of sharp rocks and dry brush. No, no, please, no, I whispered, but the car didn't care about my prayers. I pumped the brakes like a maniac. Tried the emergency brake gently then hard. The back end wobbled but didn't slow. It felt like something had already written the ending, and I was just a passenger watching the last page turn. The edge rushed at me like a closing fist. In that half second before impact, my brain didn't show me a slideshow of my whole life. It showed me one image: my daughter's tiny sneakers by the front door, the way she runs to me every evening, arms open, yelling, "Mama's home." I refused to let that be my final memory, so I made a split-second decision that still doesn't feel real. I unbuckled, threw open the door and jumped. The ground hit me like a speeding truck. Air left my lungs in a painful gasp. I tumbled, shoulder, hip, back, rocks cutting through my sleeves. For 5 endless seconds, I couldn't breathe or see straight. Then came the explosion. Deep whomp that shook the ground beneath me. I turned my head just in time to see a fireball climb out of the ravine, black smoke twisting into the sky like a question mark. My car was gone. If I had hesitated one more heartbeat, I closed my eyes and let the ringing in my ears become the only sound in the world. I was broken, bleeding, but alive. Somehow impossibly alive. I don't know how long I lay there. Time became a wet blanket, heavy and shapeless. At some point voices appeared. Locals from a small village nearby. They found me half conscious by the side of the road, covered in dust and dried blood. They didn't speak much English, but their hands were gentle. They carried me to a simple concrete house, laid me on a cot, and cleaned my wounds with water from a plastic jug. No hospital. No doctors. Just good people who owed me nothing. My phone had shattered in the fall, so I couldn't call home. For 2 days I faded in and out of sleep. My body a map of purple bruises. Every time I woke up, I thought the same thing: they must be dying of worry. My husband, my little girl. Were they standing by the phone? Was she asking why mommy hadn't come back? That thought hurt worse than any cracked rib. Missing someone who doesn't know you're alive is a special kind of hell. On the 3rd morning, I could stand. I thanked those strangers with the only words I knew. Thank you, and started walking. The road back felt like a dream I couldn't wake from. Every step was a small war. But I kept seeing my street, my door, their faces. When I finally turned onto my block, I stopped cold. Something was wrong. The air felt different, empty. Then I saw them: my husband sitting on the curb, elbows on his knees, head down. My daughter curled next to him, sniffling. And beside them 3 large suitcases, not packed for a weekend. Packed for a departure. My daughter looked up first. Her mouth fell open. My husband turned slowly like a man expecting a ghost. When his eyes found mine, his face didn't light up with joy. It crumbled. He stood up on shaky legs and whispered something I'll never forget. They told me you didn't make it. They already held a service. For a second, I couldn't breathe again. A service? What are you talking about? I'm standing right here. My daughter crashed into my legs, sobbing into my jeans. I scooped her up, feeling her tiny heart pound against mine. But my eyes stayed locked on my husband. His voice was hollow when he spoke again. The police came. They said your car went off the cliff, exploded. They said, with a fire that hot, there was nothing left to find. He ran a hand through his hair, looking broken. Your family showed up the next morning, Sarah. Your mom, your dad, your brother. They took over everything. Took over what? I asked, a cold feeling spreading in my chest. Everything, he said. The house. The paperwork. Even started planning the funeral before I could think straight. He paused, glancing at our daughter, then back at me. At first, I thought they were just grieving. But then your brother pulled me aside and said, he said I was the prime suspect. My blood went cold. Suspect for what? They think I caused the crash. He replied. They told me the house is in your name. That I'd inherit everything. And they said they had proof. What proof? My voice came out sharper than I intended. He shrugged, a tired, defeated motion. Old texts where we argued. A neighbor who heard us fight last month. Nothing real. But your brother said it wouldn't matter. He said if they went to the police, I'd be arrested before anyone checked the facts. I stared at him, my mind racing. And you just believed them. He looked at our daughter again, and his eyes glistened. They said if I got arrested, they'd take her. That I'd lose her. I couldn't risk that. So they changed the locks, packed our bags, and told us to leave. They've been living inside our house for 2 days. I set my daughter down slowly, my hand still holding hers. Everything clicked into place like a lock turning. The accident, the speed of their takeover, the accusations. It wasn't grief, it was a haste. They had buried me alive on paper so they could steal my life while I was still breathing. I looked at my husband and saw the shame in his posture. This is not your fault, I said quietly. Then I turned toward the front door. But that is still my house, and nobody takes what's mine. I walked up the steps, each one heavier than the last. My husband followed behind me, holding our daughter's hand. I didn't knock. I turned the knob, unlocked, and pushed the door open. The living room had been rearranged. My mother's coat hung on my hook. My brother's boots sat by my fireplace. And there they were, my parents and my brother, frozen at the dining table, takeout containers in front of them. My mother's face went white. My father dropped his fork. My brother stood up so fast his chair tipped over. You're dead. He whispered. No. I said, stepping fully inside. I'm very much alive, and I'm very interested to hear how you explained my death to the lawyers before my body was even cold. Silence. The kind of silence that screams. My mother found her voice first. We thought you were gone. We had to protect the assets. For your daughter? For my daughter. I laughed, and it came out bitter. You threw my daughter and her father onto the street. You didn't protect anyone but yourselves. My brother stepped forward, his jaw tight. You don't understand. His story didn't add up. We were being careful. Careful? I shot back. You accused my husband of murder. You took my house. In 3 days. That's not careful. That's rehearsed. My father finally spoke, his voice low. We did what any family would do. No, I said, shaking my head. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't lie. Family doesn't hold a fake funeral while the daughter is still fighting to come home. I looked at each of them slowly. My mother, who used to braid my hair. My father, who walked me down the aisle. My brother, who promised to always have my back. None of them would meet my eyes. Blood doesn't make you family. Loyalty does. I walked to the front door and held it open. Get out now. My mother started crying. Where will we go? I don't care, I said. But you're not staying here. Not ever again. My brother grabbed his jacket, muttering something about legal rights. I cut him off. You have no rights here. This house is mine. And from today forward, so is my peace. One by one, they filed past me. My mother paused at the door, tears on her cheeks. You'll regret this. I looked her straight in the eye. The only regret I have is that I ever called you family. The door closed behind them with a soft click that felt like a gunshot. I turned around. My husband was standing in the middle of the living room, holding our daughter, both of them crying silently. I walked over and wrapped my arms around both of them. "We're home," I whispered. And for the first time in 3 days, I believed it. Some people don't show you who they are until they think you can't fight back. But the dead have a way of rising at exactly the wrong moment for the greedy. If you've ever been betrayed by the people who should love you most, you know this feeling. Like and subscribe to Winds of Thought for more stories that remind you who really deserves a seat at your table. And remember, your silence after betrayal is just their victory speech. Don't let them finish.